this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Joining me today is Billy Das, the Indie Dork. What's up, Billy?
What's up, everybody? I'm excited to be here.
And I, of course, am Brad Gullickson, the Mouth Dork. Yeah, me too. Psychorama 3.
I love what Faye does with Psychorama 3, and I love the celebratory atmosphere that goes
What
on
is
here.
Psychorama 3?
So Psychorama 3 is the sequel to Psychorama 2, which was the sequel to Psychorama 1, which was the celebration of the horror genre films. Not just new genre films, but films from all ages.
That happens at the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, Virginia.
That's the key part.
It's basically like cracking open the skull of Faye Guerrera, the Psycho Cinema host, and witnessing the horrors that spill out. And they are fairly eclectic. Psychorama 3 had everything from classic 80s schlock, like Death Spa,
Oh, man. So jealous that you got to see that on the big screen.
weird-ass Japanese American co-productions like The Green Slime,
Yes.
to new films like The Dark and Lutz and Possum, and the guests that we have today. We are talking to Ron Carlson, the writer-director of Dead Ant, as well as, oh my God, The Mads. Frank and Trace from Mystery Science Theater 3000. Yeah.
Yeah, so that... I don't know what else you need to say about that.
It is... Frank and Trace, that's my childhood, right?
Yeah.
MST3K on Sci-Fi Channel at midnights. I spent a long time, many hours watching what they put out. And it's a very unique art form. So talking to them was a real treat. Now, Dead Ant was a movie that I saw a year ago after it premiered at Screamfest LA. And I had the opportunity to talk to Tom Arnold about this film. And it is a mashup of hair metal aesthetic with giant ant 50s sci-fi monstrosity. Yeah.
I think it's exactly the type of like raucous comedy that you like genre film mashup that you will enjoy watching with an audience or at home with your friends.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I originally watched the film by myself on my laptop, and we talked about this with Ron, and it didn't have the effect that it had with Psychorama 3.
Right.
And what's so funny, when Psychorama ended and Faye was asking, what was your favorite film of the festival? Many voices shouted out, Dead Ant! It really struck a chord in Winchester. So that was super cool. So that's what we got. We're going to jump off this episode with a conversation with Ron Carlson, and then we're going to take a quick break, and then return with the Mads.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. To the projection booth. And we're back in the Alamo Drafthouse projection booth. We are hanging out today with Ron Carlson, director, writer of Dead Ant.
Yes, Dead Ant, right? We
Yes.
love Dead Ant.
Yes, and the crowd last night at Psychorama loved Dead Ant.
Oh, that's awesome. And they did, yeah.
Yeah, it was a loud, raucous response. Cheers. People were standing and fist pumping at the end of the movie. That's why you go to the movies. But I wanted to start, Ron, if you don't mind. Obviously, well, I say obviously, based on your film, it appears that you're a big hair metal fan.
I have mad respect for the hair metal world, you know, and it no longer exists. It's becoming extinct. It's people that, you know, still. It was a show, you know. There's a line in the movie that says rock and roll died when bands stopped wearing makeup. You know, where's the pyrotechnics? Where's the, you know, dead animal exploding on stage? I mean, we can't do that anymore. It's not PC. but you know, it was a real show, an experience, you know, and it was like really like I don't know, a 10 to 15 year span of bands doing that, you know, and real costumes, you know, like it's not a guy with a guitar and just he's singing. There was a lot of showmanship and craziness with the hair metal, and I like that, especially for a film, you know.
Right, personality is what I think of, right? You know, like, and Jake Busey and Reese, thank you. Really, they're able to show their performer side. Like, they fall really well into that Poison lifestyle.
Yeah, they did. You know, I think that was a trick with the whole movie, that getting the actors not to stereotype or cartoon these type of characters, because that would have been easy to do. But to keep them grounded and real, and they're on a journey, and Reese and Jake and Leisha, they and Sean, you know, they killed it. You know, they really and Reese and Jake especially, you know, really became like Sonic Grave, you know, so, and you believed them.
But I mean, you're functioning as writer and director in this instance. So in getting that grounded performance out of them where it's not a caricature, is that in the writing? Is that in the on-set directing? Like, what's the relationship like there to get that out of them?
You know, well, Reese especially is a very truthful, honest actor. You know, he's very passionate, so like he plays everything very real, and he really, like, I mean, man, he really brought everything to the table for the role of Pager, and you know, I would say it's not in the you know, you saw the film, so what's on the page is on the page. I wrote that, but it's keeping the scenes truthful throughout. So I'd say some of the direction through it, and you know, in correlation with the actors, like they, you know, we had a big discussion before if we character, you know, it's hard for me to characterize these characters. We are going to end up. The comedy's not going to work. Right. You know, people aren't going to buy into it. You know, and I'm a huge believer in being truthful. That's where comedy comes from. It comes from truth. You know, and as soon as you see, you know, there are some celebrity actors that had some great films, and then they've decided that, you know, no matter what I do, I'm funny, and it's not true. You're not funny if you're not truthful. You know, we need to believe you. We need to believe that you're in that situation. And then we all feel that, and then when something happens, we get the laugh. Well,
so that something happens, you know, it's a hair metal movie, but it's also a giant ant movie.
Right.
Why smash those two worlds together?
You know, you want the real truth?
Yes.
I'm going to tell you the truth. If I were to do a comedy, and this were just a comedy, there were no giant ants. It wasn't, you know, the whole film is basically a film that follows all the rules of a horror film. You know what I mean? I set it up in the beginning, and we stay true to the horror film rules. Yet within it, it's a comedy band movie. It's a comedy music movie that happens to have giant ants in it. But you can't sell a comedy anymore. You know, it's very, very difficult to sell a comedy. And even if a film is great in a festival, you know, it makes $12 and it goes straight to VOD. Nobody puts it in a theater. I mean, the last major release of a comedy that I can think of is really Napoleon Dynamite. Yeah. And that was still like a miniature, you know, Paramount, MTV Films, you know, correlation. So technically wasn't a guy like me that raised some money with some people and made a movie. And I've made a comedy, and it was a Christmas comedy. It's on Netflix, and it has been on there for 5 years. But that film, you know, when it was announced, it had a great cast: Taryn Manning, Meatloaf, Beverly D'Angelo, Eric Roberts, and it wasn't made for much money, and it was the hardest thing to sell on the planet. You know, as soon as this came out, Tom Arnold, Sean Astin, Giant Ants, every distributor in town sent me an email directly to me, hey, I want to see the movie, I want to see the script. You know, when we premiered at Screamfest, every distributor came to it. Horror's the one genre that you can still sell a film and you can make it independently and it can reach an audience, you know, and so, and I do have a love for horror, and so, but those combinations together, and I do have a huge, so it wasn't just a formula. I don't want anyone to think that, because that's not the answer either. I'm a big fan of like 60s creature films, you know, and not just the films themselves, but the key art that goes with them.
Yeah, for sure.
I am a huge art fan, and I love the key art to all, I mean, the stuff that you see now that, oh, give us a couple of, you know, digital stills and we'll create this shitty poster.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
We're standing in front of them all right now here in the projection booth.
We're in a wall-to-wall, you know, digital shithole, and there's no artists that actually create the key art with the illustration. And I love the key art that's on Dead Ant right now. It's like, even if you Google Ant movies, my movie comes up first, and then you see that compared to like them, and you see it next to, you know, Empire of the Ants, just, you know, Ant-Man, every Ant movie that's created. But mine's up there right now, and it's like, bam, Dead Ant stands out. And I'm talking with the distributors right now about, you know, trying to keep the key art, you know, because it needs to have it needs to feel like a hair metal album. You know?
Sure.
And a lot of those had illustrations. So anyway.
Well, I mean, that kind of slides into, you know, the film premiered at Screamfest last year.
Yep.
You've been living with the film for a long time. You've been going from festival to festival with the movie. What is that process like for you emotionally to have to remain so high on your baby? I mean, you are selling it constantly for a long period of time.
Well, the greatest part of it is I've been around the world. I've been to Belgium, France. I'm going to Switzerland next week.
Nice.
I was in Buenos Aires, you know, Spain. So I've gotten to see it with several different groups of people that don't speak English for the most part. And then, you know, you always hear, well, comedy doesn't translate. And I've luckily been able to watch it and see people react to it just like you saw it last night in the theater. And it was a great experience. A week and a half ago, I was in Strasbourg, France, and, you know, the French kids, they still smoke, you know, like cigarettes, you know? What? And so at the end of the movie, at the climax, when, you know, I don't want to totally give it away, but, you know, it's like a concert. It is a concert. And a kid in the front row pulled out his lighter and held his lighter above his head, and then 1, 2, 3, half a dozen lighters in the theater, and people swaying back and forth, and they were dancing to the song Side Boob throughout the end of the movie, and it was just fucking awesome. And so it's like, wow, if the French think it's funny, it must be funny. You know? So it's been an amazing response, and, you know, the heartfelt rip that's going to come out of my chest soon is that, you know, this movie is meant to be seen with an audience. It's meant to be seen with a group. Comedy is contagious. And when you're home sitting there in your television room and you've downloaded it or you've watched it or you're watching it on VOD, you're not going to get that experience, you know? And, you know, I relate that to Rocky Horror Picture Show. If you saw that at home and you didn't see it with a midnight audience, throwing rice and having just, you know, all the, you know, the pleasure of seeing it with a group and sharing an experience with friends, it's a different experience, and it's really not the same.
So Dead Ant, you know, it's a journey movie, right? You're with the band. You're in their trailer, I guess is what we'll call that. Yeah. And you're going to Nocella, not Coachella, Nocella, because that's where they could land the gig. And as in a theater, it's like you're in the trailer with them. You're on the journey. You're expecting to get to Coachella. So when you get to Coachella with a crowd, there's a release. And at home, will you feel that release if you're not experiencing it with somebody else? You know.
Well, I'll throw the question back to you because you saw it on a link the very first time before you interviewed Tom. And then you got to see it with a crowd last night. So you explain it to me, the difference.
Well, the difference for me is, so you watch it on a laptop. I was in a hotel room when I watched it the first time, and I'm also going to interview Tom Arnold, so I'm keyed into his performance. I want to come up with good questions. And it's a very analytical watch, right? You're going like, okay, what is this film doing? It's a giant ant movie. I love them. I love Eight-Legged Freaks. I love Empire of the Ants. I think I understand who this filmmaker is. But I don't think I laughed once when I was watching it by myself. And then, a year goes by, and I have this opportunity. We're going to talk to you. I'm get to see it at Psychorama. And suddenly, the movie is a total blast to me. I mean, it is rock and roll, and you really fall for the members of this band. It really is a communal experience, as you were saying.
Well, it's like the difference between listening to a new album at home once you get it and you take this journey with a band in your living room with your headphones on or not, versus going to a concert and hearing them play. There's energy. Like that energy.
We
really
talk about this a lot.
Brad and I,
we debate about
thing
this
where Brad and I...
He's very much like, I love Netflix and I love VOD, and I'm like, fuck those places. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it.
You're minimizing my argument, Brad.
I know. But I feel like when you're with the crowd, and maybe like when you sit down to a movie, who knows what your day was already, right? But when you're in a crowd, one person's laugh at a joke might signal to you what the film is, right? Like you pick up on that person's laugh, and then you join that person's train of thought.
Mm-hmm. Laughter is contagious.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you don't get at home. You just don't get that experience, where you're with a group and you feel that energy, and the same thing goes for a very frightening, scary film. It's like to feel the fear in the audience, and a film is like when you're in a theater, it really is an escape. You're going in and you're going to experience something with a group, and you're all going to experience it together. And when you're at home, the phone can ring, you can push pause, you can be doing, you're already doing something different, and I'm guilty of that myself. And I don't think every film, requires a theater,
Sure.
Or an experience. But huge comedies, Bridesmaids, for example, when I saw that, I loved that in a theater, And I've watched it again at home, and obviously I've seen it a second time, but like it's the theater experience with laughter is just contagious.
So when Dead Ant finally comes home, I would encourage people to find your friends who are into hair metal, find your friends who obsessed over them and Harryhausen stuff and monster movies, John Landis movies, right? Find those people, get together, grab a couple beers, and watch Dead Ant.
Yeah, John Landis endorses Dead Ant.
Yeah, so
I just spent time with him 2 weeks ago at a festival in France, and he's a fan. He told everyone in the audience, go see Dead Ant. I'm thrilled by that.
Holy
because
shit.
John Landis was the director of Animal House, which started really an entire brand of comedy, and Doug Kinney from National Lampoon wrote it, and that was just such a great group, and that was like the foundation for a onslaught of movies that penetrated the 80s and through the 90s, and still people pull from that today.
Yeah, so I would probably be able to die easy knowing that John Landis said something that I did was worth it.
Yeah, no, it was an awesome experience, because I was such a big fan, and like I really think The Animal House was the film that like started such a different direction in comedic cinema from all previous films.
Agreed,
nothing like
100%.
that.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to exactly what you're saying. Because this is an audio medium. Brad and I are just nodding in agreement. That's what's happening.
Yeah,
right now.
we're all massive Landis fans. American Werewolf in London's one of my all-time favorite movies. Blues Brothers is another one.
Yep.
So congratulations on that, Ron.
Thank you.
Before we go, is there anything that you wanted to say about Dead Ant that we haven't covered?
No, I mean it's it's a good time.
Agreed.
If you're somebody who's going to sit there and needle at a CG shot, then stop watching. Just give up your $3 that you paid on VOD and go home. I didn't have the budget of Star Wars, and if you're that guy, then you're not the guy I want to hang out with and have a beer.
Well, the effects are in the spirit of the film.
Exactly.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah,
It fits
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is the movie wouldn't be funnier if I spent another $10 million on the ants, or I spent $12 less.
It actually might not be as good. Like, I feel like the level of ant CG work that you have in Dead Ant plays perfectly with the tone of the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And those are the ants I want in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't want whatever Jerry Bruckheimer is going to cook up.
No. Thank you. But yeah, I made the movie with a mash of things that I really like. The movie is a reflection of like a piece of my personality.
Cool.
I love 60s horror and I love hair metal. And how do I put those together? And that's what I did.
And you succeed. And where can we find you online?
What do you mean, where can you find
Like,
me?
are you on Twitter?
Oh,
Are you
yeah.
on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram at Ron Carlson 1226. And then you can follow Dead Ant Movie on Instagram. And then there's a Facebook page. So, but yeah, mainly I'm more of the Instagram guy. That's what I like. So,
Well, you got a new follow.
okay.
Did you Instagram? Before we started talking, you mentioned that you went on a cross-country motorcycle journey. Did you Instagram any of that?
I did.
All right.
I
Okay.
Instagrammed that.
You should
and,
deep dive on that because it sounds like a great trip. That's what I'm going to do in just a minute. Is look at your Instagram photos for the cross-country trip.
Yeah, it was tricky. I wish there was more, and then but it's hard when you're by yourself. I did it by myself. So.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Me too. That was my biggest thing. Safety first.
Survival.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank you, Ron. Congratulations on Dead Ant. And go see Dead Ant, please. Listeners, dorks, do yourself a favor.
Yes.
Check it out.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Bye, guys.
And we're back in the Dork Cave for a quick intermission. Ron Carlson, how cool was that?
That was a great conversation. I really enjoyed that conversation quite a bit.
Have you seen Dead Ant yet?
No, I haven't seen Dead Ant yet.
You need to do that, Billy.
I'm the worst.
You're welcome for me calling you out. But here's the thing. Okay, so our next conversation is with the Mads. And, I guess I won't spoil what film they have brought with them to Psychorama 3.
Right.
Because it is a little bit of a surprise.
Yes, I think so. I think that's a part of the conversation.
So we'll let them spoil it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, back to the projection booth. And we're back yet again in the Alamo Drafthouse projection booth. Today, super excited. We have Frank and Trace. The Mads are here in the projection booth. Thank you, fellas, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Obviously, Billy and I have been a big fan for a long, long time. We have not yet experienced one of your live shows, so there's a lot of anticipation. Talking to Andy Geierson, the programmer, before this event, I said, well, what are the Mads showing? What's the film? And he goes, I have no idea.
We hope that you're coming to see us and the film is secondary, because if you knew what we were going to show, you wouldn't show up. The movies are that bad.
Really? That's a big promise,
Well, the one we're doing tonight is called Walk the Dark Streets, and no one has heard of it. It's a Chuck Connors film from 1957, around there, and it's really, really bad. And
But it's
the
bad
print
in
is
the best
also
way.
really bad. So, but we've been doing it for a long time. It's actually very popular because it's just lends itself to what we do.
It's film noir And it's kind of based on The Most Dangerous Game. Two guys walking around Los Angeles with rifles over their shoulders, and they're hunting each other.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's not. This is from the same artist that gave you Robot Monster.
Oh.
Same screenwriter. as
Yeah.
Robot Monster.
Oh, well, now I'm really sold. That's one of the
Wyatt-
best
Wyatt
3D
Organ.
movies.
Yeah.
So how do you go about choosing the best bad movie?
Well, once you've seen our show, you'll see what kind of limited budget we're on. So most everything we choose is public domain.
Right.
And then, like the film that Frank mentioned, Walk the Dark Street, I was looking for something film noir-ish and ran across this film. I had never heard of it. It had Chuck Connors, so that sold me. Mm-hmm. And then I showed it to Frank, and I said, I don't know if we can even show this to people because the print is so bad.
Yeah, I agreed to do it, but we were both very worried about it, and we premiered it at the Voodoo Lounge in Denver, and then it just went over like gangbusters. It's just people loved it, but sometimes movies are so bad you're like, oh my god, should we really be showing this?
This is really pushing the envelope as to what you can actually see on screen. The print is so bad.
Oh, yeah.
But our audiences are so forgiving, and they're used to this genre of bad film that there are bad prints. And
we would love to get a good print of it, and we've talked to Alamo people all over the country, projectionists who were into collecting and finding this kind of stuff. Nobody's been able to find a good print of this. I think this might be the only existing.
yeah, it is on DVD.
Yeah.
So somehow they got it from whatever crappy thing they had to
Right.
DVD.
Fascinating.
But it's I'd love to know more about this film. I think everyone involved in it is dead.
Uh-huh.
So we had a film festival here a couple weeks ago, the Lost Weekend Film Festival, and they showed a film about Steve Young, who is the writer for David Letterman while that was on, and his fascination with industrial musicals. And
Oh yeah, I had that guy we had him on our radio show in New York.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the movie is amazing, but
Yeah.
his discovery of this industry started as a sketch idea for a Letterman gag about making jokes on movies or discs, albums, But then his research process for that was just to go to album sales and dig through crates of vinyl and see what comes up.
There's a whole underground of like an alternative history of show business and entertainment, of stuff like that was a real thing that people who were, aspired to write Broadway musicals actually were able to make a living writing those shows, and then they came and went and were forgotten. So it's great that he's discovered all this stuff. It's really, really interesting.
It's an amazing movie, but the reason that it kind of came to my mind is, you're talking about looking for prints of the films that you're finding, because they're in the public domain, they're not known, and you have to find these things and show them at least some tender love and care to make them into this presentable thing for people to engage with them. What is your research process for finding this? How do you stumble on these things?
Have you heard of the internet? That's it, man. We just
go to the internet and look for things, and
we've had fans also turn us on to stuff.
Fans give us, which is very helpful. Fans have suggestions, and then we check out the films. And,
we're doing an Arch Hall Junior and Senior epic called The Choppers in our tour, and that was a fan suggestion. And another one that we're doing, this one isn't public domain, we're paying a license fee for it, and once you see the film, you will go, why does anyone want any money? Called Neanderthal Man, The Neanderthal Man. And it's just a terrible movie. You wonder why it was even made, and it's got good cred. It's got Stanley Cortez is the
director of
DP.
photography.
But it's through Mystery Science Theater, we thought we'd seen every bad movie there was, and they keep coming up out of the the La Brea tar pit of bad film. I'm always surprised that we find new ones.
I think, growing up watching MST3K, you would introduce me to all manner of films, and I would watch The Killer Shrews, right? And you'd be like, and I would experience it through your lens, but then I would want to watch The Killer Shrews on my own.
Yeah.
And how would you explain your art? You know, it's obviously it comes from a place of comedy. It's mocking, but it's loving. It's celebratory.
Yeah, we have affection for the films we do, and especially touring with the films, as Trace and I do, and seeing them. Oh, you know, we did Mystery Science Theater. We'd see a film like half a dozen times, and then that would be it. We've seen the one we're doing tonight. We've seen that like 40 times. We've seen Glenn or Glenda 50 times, and you have to have some kind of affection for them, and we absolutely do. You know, it's not like we're just want to put down this piece of crap movie. We just want to collaborate with it, you know, to create like a third form of entertainment, which is just the movie with our riffs over it.
Yeah, they're really comforting films. I remember watching a lot of these when I was a kid, and there's just something very just friendly about these older movies. And we don't really attack them so much, you know, in a mean way, but we'll point out things that just, you know, shouldn't have happened. And then we do a lot of like social commentary and modern references. We get a little bit political sometimes with our stuff. And like Frank said, it is a third partner in the comedy show. Sometimes it's the Margaret Dumont character that we poke fun at, but we have such affection for these films.
Well, and when you're touring a film and you're watching a film 40 times, I would imagine, is it the same experience for you performing? Like, is that first performance the same as the performance you're going to give at Winchester?
No.
It travels and it evolves.
It changes with every performance. New lines are added.
We see new things.
Yeah.
You know, even you see a thing 50 times and then you go, oh, wait, I never really focused on this particular element before. And so I think it keeps the film fresh. So if you saw us do Glenn or Glenda the first time, 4 years ago, as opposed to tomorrow night, you'll see not a completely different show, but it'll have a different feel, different energy to it.
So it's kind of like there's a musicality quality to it, right? It's like going to see, 9 Inch Nails or something. You go,
sure.
You see them at they just played the anthem in DC, so that's why they're on my head. But like it's.
Also, the audience plays a part.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like the different element between doing this and doing Mystery Science Theater is the live audience. And sometimes their reactions will, inspire us in the moment to say a line we never said before. And sometimes, if they don't like a joke, then that affects the next line, or if people don't get it, I'll say thank you, 2 old people that got that. Or if there was one joke I do in The Choppers, and it always gets a groan, and then the other night it got a big laugh, and I had to say, wow, that's the first time it's ever gotten a laugh. So it's like, it's depending on, we always are like in the moment, depending on what's going on in the theater, that affects the performance.
People ask us if we're going to put these out on, disc or digital download, and for now, I have really no interest in doing that because the live show is a much different experience. I kind of don't want to trap it in amber, because it's always evolving. We're always finding different jokes and newer jokes to put in. And
that's really interesting. So we just had a conversation with Ron Carlson, who directed the opener for the Psychorama Film Festival, Dead Ant, and we had that exact conversation about experiencing a raucous comedy in a theater environment versus at home, and like that element of collectiveness, of getting people in a room together and like experiencing that energy together, really feeds a performance. Is that what feeds you now
absolutely.
as creators?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we did the TV show in isolation for so many years, and now we get feedback right away. You write a joke, and you might hear somebody years from now go, I really like that joke. And it's like, well, that's not quite as satisfying as going right immediately getting a nice laugh. It is like a drug, and we'd like to find our drugs on the street. But it is a unique experience too, and I think it's a better community experience and much more healthy, if I could be pretentious for just the rest of the day. There's something magical, like you say, of coming together and experience. That's why the Alamo is so successful.
Yeah, for sure.
People coming together with the love of movies.
Right.
And I think it's coming back more and more than sitting at home with Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, as we get more attuned to social media life and trapping ourselves on our phone, I find myself needing escape more and more, and oftentimes I do it right here at the Alamo Drafthouse Winchester.
Yeah.
I need the comfort of others, because I can sit at home alone and it's very depressing. But I need to know that there are like-minded people out in the world, and we can come and laugh for 2 hours over the same things. And
it's easy to forget how restorative that is if you spend a lot of time on social media or just hanging out at your house watching a movie.
Well, as fans of the films that you guys are often highlighting or celebrating, you go to your shows and then you find, 20 people in the lobby who like the same stuff you do, but in your hometown or in your home.
There's a big community of, Mystery Science Theater fans who become friends with each other and who come to our shows and become friends. And we hear a lot of stories like that. We hear a lot of people who are married and they met, they're bonding over Mystery Science Theaters what originally got them together. We hear a lot of fathers, a lot of parents and their kids come, and the parents turn their kids on, so now their kids are into the show. All that stuff is very gratifying.
Well, so just real quick, as drug addicts then, for the live comedy drug addicts, which is more satisfying? Testing a new joke out on the moment and having it hit, or having somebody come up and tell you that you've changed their lives and you've enforced their marriage?
Both are great. I think as a comedian, I think I might prefer getting the laugh, but, just for my own selfish reasons. But it's great when they laugh, and I love it when they tell us about, and we hear this all the time, and not just Tracy and me, everyone who was involved with the show. We always hear people saying, I was going through a really tough time in my life, and your show was such a comfort to me. My dad was sick, and we would watch the show, and it would make us. I mean, we hear that like all the time, and that just makes me so happy to hear that, because I think that's the whole point of comedy, is to make people laugh first of all, and then to give them something light and joyous in their life,
Yeah.
So here's my question for you guys. Is there a holy grail film that you haven't done yet that you want to unleash upon your audience?
I love finding these obscure things that we're all discovering together, like Walk the Dark Street, or rediscovering Glenn or Glenda, which I hadn't seen for like 30 years, and we said, well, let's do something kind of topical. And that has such a beautiful message for today, and it's so woke for its time. But it also has that awesome element of being batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And it's got a sincere filmmaker behind it. Ed Wood is a beautiful, creative artist.
And people who say he's the worst director ever don't know what they're talking about.
Well, they obviously haven't seen Mystery Science Theater, because we gave you an entire directory of filmmakers.
Far worse.
Far worse.
If the worst thing you can do is be 100% sincere in the application of your art,
exactly.
That's not the worst thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's such a great warmth and affection that Ed Wood has for his craft.
Yeah.
And I will call it a craft, because he's a good filmmaker. He just didn't have the resources.
Yeah.
And we wish he could have seen how successful and how beloved his material is.
Yeah.
Now. And it's not just kitsch. There's
Glenn or Glenda is one of the great films of the 50s. I'm convinced of that, and it's terribly written, it's terribly directed, it's terribly acted, and yet it's still a great film.
Yeah.
Well, it's a film that you see his personality, right?
Yes.
Exactly. You see his soul in it.
Yeah.
And
It's the best biopic I think I've ever seen, because it's so true, and it's him.
Before we leave, I just wanted to. We didn't really touch too much on your process. So, like, when you've decided that you're going to revisit Glenn or Glenda, like, how do you guys tackle that film? Like, do you watch it together? Do you watch it separately?
When we did Mystery Science Theater, we all gang wrote in a room, and now Trace and I live in New York City. Trace lives in Minnesota, so we do an individually. We just go through the whole film. We each write a script, and then when we go to do a gig and we get together in the town, we go through the script and just kind of very loosely decide who's going to say which lines are we going to use, and then we take it from there, and then the material really evolves as we perform it. It becomes a work in progress, sort of, that we're always changing and adding lines. But it's actually a looser approach than we had, like, for instance, when we did Cinematic Titanic with Joel and Josh and Mary Jo. That, because that was 5 people, I think it had to be more rigid and structured.
Right.
Less places to improv.
Whereas when it's just Trace and I, we have a kind of a looser approach to it. Although we are very much believe in writing scripts and having jokes ready.
There's a very solid tree of a script, and then we can keep adding jokes to it. It's really like the Fluxus art movement in that you actually see the process. Oh, I'm dying of pretentiousness.
When you guys are lining up your scripts and you're doing that initial kind of like zip up of the individual writing, you write jokes for each other when you're thinking about that, or are you really writing for yourselves?
Well, just write jokes, and then in Cinematic Titanic, it's like we write a script, and then it wouldn't necessarily be your own joke that you did. I might do a joke that Josh wrote, or vice versa. But in this case, we pretty much do the jokes that if you hear Trey say something and you hear I say something, in most cases it's a joke that we wrote. But as Trace and I work on our separate scripts, when we get together, we always find that we came up with the same jokes.
Right.
And the same. There was one instance where, and when we were doing Plan 9 from Outer Space, where at the exact same moment, we both wrote a Stubby K reference.
Hive mind.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we have we have a very common appreciation of comedy, so we're coming with a lot of the same influences. And what I like about this configuration is that it's really 2 personalities and 2 points of view, like-minded but still distinct, characters, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's very spontaneous too. It has a very of the moment feel to it, because we're always thinking of a better joke. You're always trying to think, I can do a better one here. And if you can't, then you just move on. But I think the real magic is like discovery in the moment and go, wow, I never thought of that. How did it?
One of the biggest laughs in Glenn or Glenda comes near the end of the film. Just a great joke, but Trace thought of it, but he didn't think of it until at least 6. He'd done the film at least 6 times or something before, and now suddenly, like, one of the best jokes in the movie is in the thing.
I have a hard time sitting focused, writing, and trying to think of a thing. But then once your mind is free, in the moment, it's an improv thing, and that's my background is improv. And once your mind is blank, it's so much fun to go, wow, who even said that?
And that's another case too where the audience contributes. If they're a great audience and everything is and we just get so relaxed, and you just finally you have the freedom to think, oh, I can try this joke because these people. And if they don't like it, no one's going to like it. So this is like a good time to try it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm insanely excited to finally see the Mads perform live here at the Alamo Drafthouse Winchester. We've got 2 shows, right? So we have one on Saturday and one on Sunday. 2 different films. You didn't
No
want
one tonight, Friday and
Friday
Saturday.
and Saturday.
I'm sorry. I don't even know what day it is.
And the
It's
people
Friday.
and the people listening to this, I hope they have a time machine.
Yeah, they'll
Yeah, that's true. But so here's the thing. Where can we find your schedule? Where can we find you online?
Go to themadsarback.com
And
we
Facebook
have,
page.
And our Facebook page. We have stuff coming up in Baltimore, which is
That's
kind
just
of
across
this
the river, man.
area. Baltimore, we're going to be in Milwaukee. We're going to be in Grand Rapids. We're going to be in Minneapolis. We're going to be in
And
Phoenix.
Tucson. maybe.
Yeah, or Tucson or
Or
Phoenix.
Tempe or something like that. Phoenix area.
Phoenix, Tucson, or it's also known Tempe. Whichever.
The Southwest.
Yes.
The Phoenix area.
Right.
Just drive until it's uncomfortably hot and then go to a movie theater.
Boom. Done. We'll find you. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you.
We really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Thank
This
you.
is great.
And there you have it.
Whew.
Wow.
Look, we're back in the dork cave, and my brain is still splattered all over the inside of the projection booth because my head exploded while that conversation was happening.
Yeah. That, as I said at the start of this episode, dreams come true. Talking to Frank and Trace, that's unreal.
I remember after we had the conversation, we posted the picture of us, and people know MST3K and they really connect with that. And one of my friends was like, "That's so cool," and I was like, "That is exactly what I was thinking the entire time." And I don't know how obvious that is, but literally my internal monologue that whole conversation was, "This is awesome. How is this happening? Be cool."
It was obvious, Billy, but that's okay. So here's the thing, like. I would certainly encourage you to check out the Chuck Connors film, Walk the Dark Street. It's not a good movie.
They were very open about that, though.
But, it's a film that I think you could enjoy even without the assistance of the Mads. Mm-hmm. But it certainly helps. Mm-hmm. And
how were their performances?
Oh, they were amazing. They were amazing. It was a wonderful experience. I would certainly revisit any Mads performance going forward. They hit up all the Alamos, so check your local listings that way. But follow all those points of social media contact that they listed in their interviews. Mm-hmm. They are doing a lot. Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of pots on the stove. And I'm impressed by everything that they do.
So I think that this was another Psychorama success.
Yeah, bring on Psychorama 4.
Ready for it.
I'm ready for it. Billy Das, where can we find you on social medias?
You can find me at WBDAS on Twitter and Instagram.
Follow our other dorks at The Disco Dork on Twitter, at Sidewalk Siren, at The Turtle Dork, and of course I am Brad Gullickson, the Mouth Dork. Follow me at Mouth Dork on all social medias. And guys, until next time, peace out.